Hello. It looks like I'm live. Is there anyone out there to give feedback? Hi there. Sorry about that. Slight technical error. And welcome to Earth Live Lessons. My name is Dan Ryan, and I work at the amazing Eden Project in Cornwall. And I'm super loads of thanks to Lizzie Daly for letting me take over her channel for 20 minutes or so. I can see a few people are out there. I'll talk a bit about what I'm going to do over the next 20 minutes, and hopefully you'll be able to, Lizzie's saying we are live, be able to have a bit of an interactive discussion and see where we go from there. Since I agreed to do this program, this short channel, my original idea was to do this broadcast live from the Rainforest at the Eden Project. Since that happened, the world has completely changed. We're now all we're staying at home safe, aren't we? So I'm just so thrilled that Lizzie has set up this series of experiences so we can still get to explore the world and learn a bit more about it together. It's such a great initiative. I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about what rainforests are and why they're so important. I'm going to spend a bit of time showing you some of my favorite cool plants from the rainforest. I've got some photos on an iPad. I've got some props down next to me and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll probably try and finish with a bit of a Q&A and you generate some of the discussion. If that all sounds okay, then we'll get cracking. So my name's Dan Ryan. I'm a biologist by training, but typically work as an environmentalist and educator at the Eden Project. Like many of you probably watching, I've always been super into wildlife and nature. My first love, I guess, was dinosaurs. I would just plow through dinosaur books. You couldn't give me enough. I still remember all their names today, which I don't think this knowledge will ever leave you if you're also a dinosaur fan. From dinosaurs, I went on to be completely addicted to freshwater, then marine fish, and then my sole fascination was birds for many years. I just couldn't get enough of bird watching and reading about birds. It wasn't really until I was about 25 or so, when I got a job at the Eden Project, that I actually realized that plants were really cool. And this was a bit of a revelation for me. Up until that time, and I had done a degree in biology and all that kind of stuff, so I should have known how important plants were. But I'd always just felt they were somewhere for animals to live. They weren't particularly more interesting than that. But when I went to work at the Eden Project and was confronted by thousands, if not millions of individual plants, that I began to realize just how important they were. Through my work there, I've been lucky enough to go around the world and worked and traveled and explored different rainforests all over the place. And we'll talk a bit about some of that over the next 15 minutes or so. If you don't know the Eden Project, it is an amazing set of global gardens contained in two gigantic bubble-like structures, which we call biomes. Biome is actually a climatic region of the world where we've clustered together plants that come from similar kinds of climates. The two main covered biomes at Eden Project are the rainforest, or the tropics, and the slightly smaller one is where we house all the Mediterranean type plants. So plants from Western Australia, the Mediterranean basin, California, and also places like southwest Chile. So we'll start off by, what is a rainforest? You might want to have a quick think about that, because it's a word we hear a lot, but often doesn't get defined too clearly. There are really I like to think of it, three main kinds of rainforests in the world. And I've got a little globe that I'm just going to spin around. This is the equator where my finger is. And as I spin it, we're going to spin through Central and Western Africa, which is a big, big chunk of rainforest, countries like Cameroon, Ghana, Congo, etc. Oh, that's South America, South and Central America. Then we come into Africa, Central and Western Africa, huge, great chunk of rainforest there. a big but diminishing chunk of rainforest in Southeast Asia, where my finger is now, countries that include places like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, southern tip of India, and so on. And then where I was meant to finish up, Central and South America, which contains probably the most famous rainforest region in the world, which is the Amazon. Spreading out from that, and South America is a good example, we get to subtropical forms of rainforests. Very famous one is the Atlantic rainforest of southern Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina. And interestingly, there are also rainforests in the temperate regions of the world. The western seaboard of the United States, and even, believe it or not, Great Britain and Ireland have their own rainforests. So if you're watching this from somewhere like Scotland, West Wales, Devon, Cornwall, and some bits of Ireland, you might have a rainforest on your doorstep. And this absolutely blew my mind. And the reason why rainforests get their name is because they're so wet. They tend to be in places which get rained on a lot. But the really cool thing about rainforests is that they are the things often generating the rain that rains on them. So without the rainforests that are producing the rain and generating the rain that falls on them, then regions can dry up and become a bit desertified. They can become deserts. So these are really, really finely balanced ecosystems that they are controlling their own environment. And this is the really cool thing that we should pay attention to when we're talking about rainforests. They're so important because almost roughly, scientists reckon about half of the life on Earth lives in rainforests. Now, when we come to counting plant species, as taxonomists like to do, it's quite hard to get a kind of true figure on how many plants there are out there. Best guesses are somewhere around 300,000 at the moment, but depending on how taxonomists split and divide species, there could be a few more or even less than that. We reckon about half of that total live in rainforests, so somewhere like 150 to maybe upwards to 200,000 plant species in rainforests. And the same is true of animals. Rainforests occupy only 2% of the world's surface area, but contain at least 50% of the world's animal species. They are truly extraordinary biodiverse systems that it's incredible that, and it is imperative that we look after these places. It's interesting, I think, to wonder why someone like me and maybe some people like you didn't pay much attention to plants growing up. And there's actually a proper name to describe this, and it's called plant blindness. And plant blindness is basically the idea that we are literally blind to the importance, beauty, ecological function, utility, how we use plants. We are literally blind to that. We tend to care about the sexy animals. And I've watched lots of Earth Live lessons, and there's been lots of people talking about some very cool, awesome animals. I've seen videos about whales, about rhinos, about orangutans. These are the really cool animals. I haven't seen much about plants. And you can think about this as a good animals get all the broadcasting attention, which is why I wanted to talk about plants today. And hopefully at the end of this, you'll be a bit more inspired to pay attention to the plants in your world. Okay, I'm going to try and flick up some photos. Now, this may work. I can see someone has said that they'd visited the Eden Project. Cool. This is what the rainforest biome at the Eden Project looks like. It's the largest indoor rainforest in the world. It's about 200 meters long, 50 meters tall. This is amazing because we can grow rainforest trees to their full height inside. So if you haven't been lucky enough like me to go and visit rainforests around the world, then coming here gives you a really good sense of those places. And some of the super cool plants that I was hoping to show you if we'd done this for real are things like this. This is a pitcher plant. This is a plant that eats animals, and there is not much cooler out there than that. I also would have wanted to show you this plant. This is a plant called the Titan arum. It's a plant that's very threatened in the wild, but produces a set of flowers, an inflorescence, a flowering structure that is even taller than me, so over 2 meters high. Just incredible. The other plant that I really wanted to show you, and my colleague has kindly sent me a video, is a thing called the sensitive plant. And this is a plant that actually moves. So I'm going to try and get up the video. And if you watch what happens, she's touching the leaf and the leaflets are folding up. So this is actually a moving plant. So we're trying. Can you see that? Isn't that cool? And Lizzie's kindly said, if you want to read more about the beautiful Titan arum, you can do it on the Eden Project website there. Thanks, Lizzie. Okay. What really amazed me when I began to work at the Eden Project was understanding just how many things from the rainforest are in my house. So I'm really quickly going to show you some rainforest plants that I don't have in front of me because we're not in the rainforest, but they have been brought into our houses because we use them. I've taken a label off this bottle, so we're not doing any advertising, but this is a famous brand of drink, which in the past was made up of 2 plants, coca and cola. So this tells you what that plant is, both rainforest plants. Here's a bag of Cornish coffee. Coffee is another plant that's grown all over the rainforests. And my favorite fruit, and maybe yours, is bananas. While we're staying safe at home, I've eaten a huge amount of bananas. Maybe you have too. There's a really interesting story about bananas, and it can help us do a really quick biology lesson with them. Wild bananas, and bananas are from Southeast Asia, places like Malaysia, Philippines, and those kind of countries. Wild bananas are actually inedible. They're small, they're hard, they tend to be full of seeds. And you might have noticed that when you're eating a nice banana that you've bought in the shops locally, there aren't any seeds. And there's a really interesting reason for that, which I'll very quickly try and explain in as simple terms as I can, because it's actually quite complicated. When animals and plants breed or reproduce, in sexual reproduction, what tends to happen is that in humans, we can use an example. Humans tend to have 2 pairs of 2 sex chromosomes. And in reproduction, those halve in meiosis and then recombine, and then out pops a diploid or 2 sex chromosome offspring. That's why there's a roughly 50-50 chance of being male or female in an animal like the human animal. In bananas, something interesting happened, and we think the science shows that this happened about 8,000 years ago, probably in somewhere like the Philippines. A diploid banana, a banana with 2 sex chromosomes, reproduced with a tetraploid banana, a banana with 4 chromosomes. Now, what happened when they mated is the chromosomes halved in meiosis, recombined in fertilization, and then out popped a banana with 3 sex chromosomes. And that was almost this chap. These new bananas were fruitier, bigger, more fleshy, and delicious. So the farmers immediately began to try and propagate, multiply these new, beautifully tasty bananas as much as possible. 8,000 years later, we are still eating roughly the genetic offspring of that reproductive event from many thousands of years ago in Asia. That is why you don't find seeds in bananas these days, because they're basically sterile. They can't breed. But they've given us this beautiful, fleshy fruit that will get us through this next period of isolation. Okay, there is one super cool rainforest plant I'll spend the last couple of minutes talking about before a few final questions. And that is this one here. You might be able to see the massive finger-like leaves. This is a tree called Cecropia. And this is really important because you'll remember the scenes from last year, from 2019, which seems years ago now, doesn't it? We all watched in horror as the Amazon was burning. It might be this tree that helps the Amazon recover from those devastating fires, because Cecropia is a pioneering tree. When rainforests are destroyed, whether they're cut down for agriculture, either for cattle or soya production, something like that, or whether the forest has been destroyed for urbanization, the growth of a city, it is in South America, Central and South American areas, it's this plant that begins to grow again. But it has a very special ecological relationship that allows it to do that. You probably can't see, but in the leaf nodes, in the area, in the joins between the leaves and the stems, are special nodes, little kind of small lumps or growths. And in those nodes live a type of fire ant, a very bitey, painful ant which goes by the beautiful name of Azteca. And Azteca's job, it's been given a home by the tree, by the Cecropia tree, but its job is to protect that tree from being attacked by herbivores, to give the tree a chance to grow. So if you try and climb up Cecropia tree while it was recovering from a bit of rainforest deforestation, the Azteca ants just wouldn't have it. They would climb all over you and try and bite you to either eat you or scare you off. And in fact, I have been in an ant attack, not in South America, but in West Africa, and it is a pretty scary thing. You do not want to get attacked by ants. Interestingly, there seems to be one animal that seems to be immune to this attack, and that's the sloth. And we're not quite sure why. It might be because the sloth is aiding to spread the seeds of the Cecropia tree around the forest, or it's just developed a really thick skin to survive alongside the ants. So those are a couple of the really cool plants and their stories from Eden's rainforest that I'd like to share. And now I'm going to try and head over to the chat for the last couple of minutes. So I'm going to try and look at some questions. I've seen a really interesting question from Sakura. Apologies for pronunciation. Do you have some certain animals or insects in Eden which have symbiotic relationships with plants there? That is a really brilliant question, and the answer is yes. But that's because all of life is interconnected. We are all in an ecological relationship with everything else. But specifically, we try and introduce animals into the Eden Project that have an ecological function within that rainforest. So we've introduced some animals to do pest control. So we introduced a type of partridge, some tree frogs and some lizards, and also some other insects, carnivorous insects. And their job is to try and keep the greenhouse pests and diseases down. My favorite are the partridges. If you go on Eden's website or Instagram, I'm sure you'll see photos of these things. The males have got a big red mohawk. The females look like an avocado. Actually have an avocado here. And you can see them scrabbling around in the earth, trying to eat the ants. Okay, a question from Lucy, age 9. What is my favorite plant and why? I was really dreading getting this question because it's the hardest question. I think my favorite plant of all is a plant called the monkey puzzle tree. They're called monkey puzzle trees because they are so spiky that it was thought that even monkeys can't climb up them. So go, after I've finished, go away and open your favorite browser and look up a monkey puzzle tree. Actually, quite sadly, these things in the wild come from Chile, quite high up in the mountains. In the Victorian period, plant collectors, mainly from the UK, collected so many of these things that there are now, it's said, more monkey puzzle trees alive in Britain than there are left in the wild, which should really make us stop and think about our destruction of the natural world. But those forests, it's a very good timber tree, so its local forests have also been destroyed for lots of other reasons. But that, I think, is my favorite tree. Okay, I'm just going to quickly. A question from Tim. How do you set up a place like the Eden Project? Tim, that is an extraordinary complex question, but we're actually trying to find out now. At the moment, only one Eden Project exists in the world, and that's in Cornwall in the United Kingdom. But we are really, really close to building some Eden Projects in different places around the world. The first one, I think, might be in China, in a city called Qingdao. And the second one, I think, might be in Morecambe in the northwest of England. And hopefully those will open around 2023. But they're hugely complicated projects that we are very deep into at the moment. So thank you very much. And amazingly, the 20 minutes is up already. So I'm going to wave goodbye. Please check out Eden on all the usual social media channels. Like many organizations and charities, we're having a really hard time at the moment because of what's going on in the world. But if you want to help protect rainforests, then find your favorite rainforest charities and support them. There are some really brilliant ones out there. Thank you all very much for listening, and take care of yourselves. This has been an Earth Live lesson. There'll be more Earth Live lessons coming up. I think there's another one today, but definitely more tomorrow. And check them all out. They're an amazing resource. Bye, everyone.